G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach with DR. Welcome to the Round 11 stock market video. Hope you're having a ripping week so far. I'll tell you what, there's a bit of carnage going on in Supercoach at the moment, isn't it? Our premiums going down. Clary have had him for 2 weeks. Now he's going to be out for what, 2, 3, 4? We're still not 100% sure. Jelly owners are also spewing he's gone for 4 weeks at this stage, so he looks like a must trade out. Some of our rookies are getting subbed, omitted, just not getting a look in. We're not getting a heap of cash gen, apart from a few blokes that are shining lights. We're talking about Weddle, Humphrey, Atkins. Do we look to bring these blokes in? Is it too late? We will discuss that during the video. Up the top, we've got Fleeton. Now, the rookie situation, it's pretty dire this week. I'm not a big fan of Fleeton, but if you look at those blokes on the bubble, he's probably one of the better options. You've got James Sicily. He's got a break even in the 50s. Think he could be a really nice trade-on option this week if you're good for that buy. Zeret, I was massive on him last week. Still am this week. Certainly a good buy as well. Clary, as I mentioned, it's completely up to you whether or not you want to trade, whether or not you're going to hold. And then Jelly, as I said down the bottom, he is one that I would probably look to trade this week. So before we get into it, a couple of housekeeping things. You did ask for the symbols to come back. I did have the ownership percentages, but all the feedback I got was that you wanted the symbols back, so I have brought them back this week. And I did have someone that mentioned that they were colorblind and found it difficult when I highlighted the names in colors. So what I've done instead is I've got a colored box next to each name this week. It's either going to be yellow, green, blue or red. I'll still have the key down the bottom. I'm hoping that that will cater to some of those people as well. So always want to be inclusive with these videos, always up for feedback. So yeah, hopefully it helps those people out and you enjoy the video, because look, these decisions that we are making at the moment are going to make or break our Supercoach season. Planning for the buys is absolutely crucial. So when you are making your trades, if you are making any trades at all this week, then make sure that you look at your buy structure. If you don't have the Supercoach Gold, go old school. Get your pen, get your paper, the Excel spreadsheet, a word table, however you want to do it, color code it. Do it however you want to do it, but make sure that you are planned, because it will keep you in really good stead, I think, and make sure that you can continue to hopefully go up the ranks, because those people that have planned well for the buys, those people that trade well in the next month, will get a really, really big head start on those people that have left their buy planning until the last possible minute. So hope you enjoy, guys. Let's get straight into it and see who's at the top of the list for the 500k plus defenders. Now, if you're looking for a primo defender to bring in this week, then these are the options that I would take a look at. After a few lean weeks, James Sicily, he's hit form again and looks to be a fantastic buy this week. Still discounted by over 70k from his original starting price. He's hit back with a pair of 134s, playing the +1 in defence. Coming up against the Saints this week, who love to give up points to opposition defenders. A break even under 50. So he looks like the prime candidate to trade in. The only issue is that many teams will already be running, say, Day, Mitchell and Weddle. And if that's the case, it may make things difficult in your defence come round 14. But if the buys don't worry you, I think he's a ripping option. The Doc has had a fantastic month after returning from injury. He's pumped out 3 out of his top 4 scores for the year and has taken over from Sard, eating up a lot of the points. Still 65k under his starting price, so you're getting a good deal, but the buy may put some people off. Sinks had a shocker in round 9, only scoring the 65 against the Crows, but he almost put 100 points extra on that score last week with a huge 160 against the Giants, 37 touches, with 26 of those being kicks, 11 marks, a couple of tackles, even kicked 2 goals. A fantastic game from the man with the mullet, has a decent fixture in the next 3 weeks, and also has a nice buy for defenders. I did recommend him a couple of weeks ago. Still recommend him now, particularly after hitting form again last week. Tommy Stewart has a highest break even, but I wouldn't let that deter you from trading him in. Under 600k, almost a lock to finish in the top handful of defenders. And the only player on this list with that friendly round 13 buy. Played a bit of a stinker last week and still managed to punch out a 90 plus score. So for me, that's actually a positive. He's just he got such a high floor. His ceiling speaks for itself. We've already seen that 160 plus this year. Has 7 games to come at the category where he loves to play. And I'm even considering him as my VC against the Giants this week. Jay-Z was all over it at quarter time, all over it at half time. 60 points to his name, but had a very slow second half. The ultimate seagull, just loves those free chips. There are certainly safer options on this list, but we saw a ceiling game from him a little while ago, and he has the capability to score rapid points, particularly with so many opposition forward entries. Loves contested mark, loves a kick in, loves to just kick the ball in general. He's got one of the highest kick to handball ratios in the game. Love to see that. Lukey Ryan, he's gone a little cold in the past fortnight, posting his 2 lowest scores of the season with an 85 and 84. On a positive note, that's a pretty decent floor, and I wouldn't consider them to be disastrous type scores, but at the same time, with a break-even of 150, he's a pretty easy pass for now. Does have a decent buy for defenders though. And Jordan Dawson, one that we all want in our final sides, but with a break-even of 173, which is one of the highest in the game. Here's one we can just wait on, hopefully jump on under 600k. I have a feeling Josh Dunkley may attempt to make his life difficult this weekend. As a non-owner, damn, I hope that's the case. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. Got a few blokes here on the list this week. Seamus played a ripper game, looks to have locked down his spot in defence, loves to take the game on, accumulate the pill. We all have him, so a blessing because he's providing us with great on-field points as well as some really healthy cash gen. A great on-field option this week playing the Saints. Rory Atkins was a bad miss in the end and exceeded our expectations. A, with his job security, and B, I think with his scoring potential. Weller is still a little while away, and he's got to triple figures last week. Mature body, nice user. I think he could average 85 from here. As a buyer, the ship has pretty much sailed. I suppose he could jump on if you think he ticks your boxes. He'll make more coin for sure, but will it be enough from here on out? It all comes down to your personal predictions. The big bonus here, I think, and a big factor in people's interest in him is the buy. It's nice and yellow there. You can see round 13. I wouldn't be jumping on, but I know other good coaches that are. The Pepsi Max King lived his best score of the season, and another one I recommended to hold. With Rich out, his role has been more conducive to delivering bigger scores down back, and his break-even is all the way back down to 15. When Rich does come back, I think this scoring gets back to the mean, but until then, he should really continue to deliver. Bailey Dale, he's piqued the interest of some with JJ going down. A huge score on the weekend, extra kicking duties, less competition for that friendly roll down back. A break-even, only 28, but again, his form to date has been poor from a Supercoach perspective, and who knows what Bevo's plans will be. The last buy doesn't help his cause, but he's a primo of the past, and when he's on, he can dominate from half-back, deliver some really nice scores. Not one for the faint-hearted, but could be even a nice value pick if given the backline distributor and that kick-in roll. The Red Dog, I called him out as the best budget option in the stocky last week, and he delivered with a 101. I went into numbers in detail, as I mentioned last week, and we talked about the fact he scores better in wins. He's got a nice run coming up. Still consider, but last week was the week. Now, people are calling for a pod in this price range, and this is pretty much the best I can do. It's not wonderful, but anyway, quick food for thought. We got Charlie Ballard in really good form, holding up the Suns' defence. In the last 5 weeks, he's gone 93, 132, 83, 124, and a 95. That's not bad. The obvious attraction is his buy, but this also has real power vibes and a super risky selection. But there you go, a potential low-range premium Suns defender pod. Connor McKenna, he's been extremely underwhelming. He was a trade out for me last week, but if you decided to keep him, you may want to let him go. Certainly on the chopping block for mine. 46, 35, and 53 without Rich in the side is really disappointing. Lockie Whitfield, his lowest score in the last month has been a 99, really flying under the radar here. Very consistent numbers over that last month, 106, 102, that 99, and a 103 last week. Personally, he's hurt me too much in the past, and we have somewhat of a fractured relationship, so not for me, but one to consider if you're somehow good for that buy. Oh, and look, as soon as I trade him out, Ridley played a blinder, had a great roll again, 120 plus. A lot of this was due to game plan, however, I wouldn't be expecting this every week. Super frustrating as a previous owner to see this, but I don't think it's sustainable. Monitor for another week if you want, but I wouldn't be brave enough to go back there again. Will Day, he's been super disappointing. Copped a tag last week in a game where I thought that he could hit his ceiling. What I may have got wrong, but I still really rate him as a player, and I think we'll see better things from him. One to possibly flip at his buy if that suits you, but until then, he's a certain hold for mine. And Sard, he's had a real drop-off in form. An easy pass for now, but possibly a budget option later on, just so to complete your team after the buys. On to the defenders, under 250k. Up the top, we have Josh Weddle. What a man, what a game. So glad I jumped on him. I don't think even the most optimistic owner could have expected a score like this from the young man, but he went bang, kicked a couple of snags in the first quarter, and was sitting on 50 points at the conclusion of the first break. I love the look of him. His job security has moved from moderate to rock solid in the last 2 weeks. I've got a feeling that he's closer to a 60 to 70 average from here, which may not be enough to make it worth your while trading him in. If he's got another spike game in him, it could work out, but I'd probably prefer a Humphrey type due to his better buy. But owners rejoice. He also plays the Saints this weekend, and defensive points are always up for grabs. Cam Fleeton is probably the best bubble boy of the lot here, and that's a perfect example of why the rookie situation is so dire this week. A decent player, tough, doesn't shy away from the contest. Yeah, picked up 11 touches last week this is, but look, I'm just not confident here. There were some intercepts. We've got a 2-round average of 46. It's just not fantastic. Not Blake Jury or Chesser type levels. Should hold his spot with all the Giants' defensive injuries, but not sure how long he holds for. If selected this week, which I think he should, then you could trade him in, but I'm not keen on him at all. And using DPP, I'd prefer to most likely go early on another midfield rookie that impressed me. He could be okay. I just don't have a great feeling about him. Campbell Chesser reminded me why I had the poo symbol on him earlier in the year. A very, very hard pass. O'Donnell is the other player on the bubble here, but you know things aren't great when you are a 102k rookie on the bubble with a break-even in the red. Oh my goodness. And Chincotta, we're relying on him for some decent cash gen, but just doesn't look likely now, and he may even exit my team this week. On to the midfielders, 500k plus, and I think this is where a little bit of the action is this week. A few coaches are looking to invest here, and unfortunately, we do have to deal with a couple of injuries to our, well, one's an absolute elite premium, and the other one is a troubled premium with big potential and got a lot of talent in Josh Kelly, but we'll get to those blokes in the next slide. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that I'm not necessarily advocating to trade in players that have the bye next week. You'll see that you've got, Neil there, Steele, Sarong as well, but I'm not necessarily advocating that. But I do know that there are some people that are actively looking to trade into this bye. It's all about personal circumstances, so each their own. So we might do this according to the buy. So we've got the one man in yellow and Matty Rao, obviously the most friendly buy. This bloke is an absolute beast, low break even. Don't think he'll be a top 10 premium, but here's a pod and in good form. Next we see a bit of a sea of green with Warner, Parker, Neil, Steele and Sarong. All potential Oliver replacements for those that are looking to move Clarion. The main issue is that you'll only have them for the 1 week and then they'll miss straight away. I'd much rather pick one of these blokes up in round 13. I know I'll have questions about how I'd rate or order the players. It's just so hard. I suppose if I was to pick one, it would be Sarong. He's just had such a consistent season to date, has a nice ceiling, he'll rarely let you down. Neil has a nice upcoming fixture, which makes him appealing, but we can't really count on those ceiling type games on a regular basis. Seems more like a 110 averaging mid. Got Jack Steele, look back to his best last week, 25 touches, over the half of those contested, as well as a game high 11 tackles. Just what I wanted to see, delivered at a lovely 130 plus. Man of Steel looks back, could be a steal at that price as well. And then you got the two boys from Sydney. Warner, 31 touches with a 2-to-1 kick to handball ratio. 11 of those were contested. Kicked a snag, laid a few tackles. His last month, 123, 98, 104, and 137 last week, so the form line is good. Then you got Parker, 28 touches, kicked a goal, but 18 of his possessions were contested, laid an extra couple of tackles. After a very poor score of 56 in round 5 against the Tigers, he hasn't gone below 100 since. Gone 104, 116, 103, 101, and that 136 last week. So not huge hundreds for the most part, but consistent 100 to 115 scores. That's why I've got the RUCKS solid symbol on him. And then you got the two boys in blue, Indigoe and Zerip. I love Zerip pick, as you know, really advocated to people for people to jump on last week. If you did, you're laughing, but if you didn't, you still have time for sure. He's a great buy this week, although he may receive some attention from O'Neill. Went bang with 160 plus against the Tigers last week, and as we know, has a very nice upcoming fixture. And Indigoe is that lower price pick that is appealing because of the price point for potential output that's friendly. Janeth did jump him on him last week, so you're certainly in good company there. And then we have the dreaded red buy. We've got Jack McRae and Libba, the two dogs boys. So I love Libba as a selection. If he didn't have the red buy, I'd love to have him in my side. So consistent, really nice ceiling, contested beast, and I think it'd be really fun to own. And Jack McRae, he's just lost all of his CBAs. He's gone from Supercoach midfield royalty to forward flanker. Yeah, he's a lock for DPP now. Absolute lock. He will get forward DPP. Presents us with another interesting option up forward. Scored that massive 140 plus last week, so still has it in him. But I just don't trust the role. But in saying that, 1-2 monitor for sure. On to the next slide, and the only man in yellow here is Noah Anderson. And take a look at that break even. 201 if you don't mind. A mini disaster for those that traded him in after those massive scores. But for those like my man Dan Mashman who picked him up before those massive scores, the pain isn't felt as much by you. And shout out to the great Frio Tragic for coming onto the Supercoach Sword Play Potty this week. That was awesome. We chatted buys, rookies, trades, etc. So great to tap into his great brain. I know he watches the stockies, so cheers, legend. Hope you're well. And remember to check out Dan's Red Gem articles over at supercoachtalk.com. But back on track, I'd probably hold Ando. I think he bounces back, and he may save you in one or more of the buys. I know elite cash, but here's a premo that will cover well. At the same time, if you want to trade him, I can understand. And then in green, we've got Andy Brayshaw. Looks like a solid pick. I played that audio from a few weeks back where he mentions that he's now pain-free. And this looks to be the case. His output has really lifted. I've now got a lot more confidence in him. But again, another with that green buy. And I'd rather trade him in after round 12. Then you got the desk, Rory Laird in blue. Seems back to his best with a big score on the weekend. I was really worried about Rosa, but he went bang, delivered a lovely 140 plus for me. Found a heap of the pill, tackled hard, hit the scoreboard. Just loved it. I think he's a fantastic trading option this week. And I'm really jealous that I paid up more than 100k extra to start the season. Terrible decision in hindsight, but it is what it is, and hopefully he delivers from here on out. Track is another man in blue. His chances of DPP are basically out the window, so that's sort of a relief for me in a way. I'm slightly concerned about that ankle, but with this next man, Clary, out, he should spend more time in the guts, and he did score really well in the one game where Clary was missing. Small sample size, so obviously a like-for-like buy-wise. You could go there if you want. He's been one of the most informed players in the comp in the last 5 weeks. And now we get to Clary. This is tough. I've only had him for 2 weeks. Used a boost, traded Rowan out to get him in. It's just been an absolute disaster for me. You know, there goes that perma captain that I've been craving for. Now, I know that I'll have many questions. Do I trade out Oliver? It's such a tough one. So team dependent and a bit of guesswork. You know, reading the tea leaves. There are arguments for and arguments against. I'm sure you've heard them all by now. If it's only 1 to 2 weeks, then he's an easy hold. But if he's out for 3 weeks, say 11, 12, 13, then he has a bye round 14. That's 4 weeks sitting on the pine. It's 658k sitting on the pine for a month during the bye rounds. And we could be struggling during a number of these buys. We haven't got those reliable rookies like we may have had in the past. And even last year, remember the Riolis, the Carroll types, they didn't get up for us either. So that's something that we do really, really need to take into consideration, I think. Now, you could trade in a Wardlaw type to cover for a month. You could straight swap to another Uber. You could downgrade to a cheaper Premo, bank 100k. It all depends on what works well for you. I'm not going to reveal my plans yet. I'm still really, really undecided, but I will put out a video with my final trades, most likely tomorrow, and I'll show you what I end up doing. It's really doing my head in, to be honest. In the sword play potty, I was 100% holding, but I've really reassessed. I've crunched some numbers, looking at a really sneaky play, and it's one of those ones where I'll look like a bit of a genius if it works, but an absolute fool if it doesn't. So it may be a very fun or a very stressful trade. I'm not too sure. And then we get to these 4 blokes in red. Another man, and this is Josh Kelly out for 4 weeks. This is why I never go near Jelly. It just never seems to work out. He's basically a must-sell now. Not the caliber of Oliver, who we will consider holding, so I just think you need to move him on. Tommy Green scored a 119 on the weekend, which was nice. With Jelly out, that's even better for him. Well, actually, in saying that, shouldn't affect him too much so, but yeah, really nice pick there. The Bond has a very high break-even and a slight knee niggle, but apparently all good to play this week. We've all got him anyway. Imagine if he was a laid out, though. I think it'd be Donut City for some, if that was the case, but yeah, look, I think he's right to go. He's an absolute beast. Up against Gold Coast, I still expect him to score well. And lastly, we have Sammy Walsh. You wouldn't believe it. Looked set for 4 DPP, but played close to 100% midfield last week, something in the 90s, which has screwed his balance. He needs to play 41% time forward this week to be eligible for DPP. So possibly a nervous wait for those who went early expecting him to be a moving piece into their forward lines. In saying that, he could still be a decent midfielder in his own right. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k. Always an awkward price range around here. Not much to see, to be honest. I think Scott's one of the biggest traps you'll ever see. Wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. My boy Ashy, I've recommended to keep him for last month. He's delivered big time. A career high score last week. He's set his break even back to 9. Almost likely hold even through the buys at this stage. Yeah, what an absolute gun. Unlucky not to win his old man's medal. I reckon left 5 around his neck by the time his career's over. Matt Kennedy is that budget risk type option. Maybe for you, but not for me. Clugger played a ripper game against the Suns. Should have been well in contention for the medal as well. Don't think he actually received a single vote, which was a big surprise to me. But very inconsistent this year. Got a low floor. So if he goes well, hits form this week, you could have a sniff after the bye. Baker just seems to go around that mark every week, so you may want to just use as cover until the bye, then flip. Shouldn't make much, shouldn't lose much. McVee, sort of in the same boat as Baker, pretty much do what you like. And Ollie Wines is still a pass for me. A terrible season to date, Supercoach-wise. Price is low for a reason. He's got the bad bye. Hard to believe he was adjudged the best play in the comp last year by the umpires. You could go him, but just for me, he just hasn't shown enough. On to midfielders under 250k, and at the top we got Sharpie. He played a half-decent game last week, but unfortunately, as I predicted, came off as a sub. Not great signs for owners. I've already delved into this pick in great detail, and everything that I've said over the last 2 weeks, that remains the same. Job security, I think, is sketchy. I feel he may be out when Rich comes back in. And there are so many players just breathing down his neck for an opportunity. I may be completely wrong and he plays this week, keeps his spot, and then holds past the buys, but I just don't have great confidence. Pretty happy that I avoided. But next up, we have Georgie Wardlaw. A bit of a rule breaker here. Again, only played the 1 game. And you do know how I feel about going early on rookies, but in saying that, this bloke looks superb, really caught our attention from his first look in. It's half skillful, confident, and he seems to be primed for a bit of a CBA mid-roll. They've warmed him up after injury and let him loose last week, but that's the main concern with the pick, and really the only risk, in my personal opinion, in going early. It's his poor durability. Everything apart from that may be possibly the team that he plays for as well. No offence to North supporters, but everything apart from that, they're all green ticks. 56% CBAs, 16 touches for 85 points. Slowed up a little bit as the game went on, as expected, but all in all, terrific performance. And if I had to bring in a rookie this week, it's going to be him. I'm considering, say, using him as cover for Clary if I decide to hold, but if not, I'll most likely wait a week, I think, and then jump on if he plays well and gets through the match unscathed. But if you're ever going to go early, it's probably a bloke that I'd consider anyway. And Nevitt, here's a hold for me. Has a great bye. Should keep his spot with midfield injuries at Geelong. Obviously has that great bye as well. Matty Johnson had a real impact coming on as a sub last week. I think he may find it difficult to break his way back into the side, as the Freo team as a whole performed pretty well. But he did everything he could to impress, and he should probably be the first one back inside the 22 if someone goes down. Even a sneaky chance this week, but I think it'll be tough. And Angwin, his hold for now, seemed like bit of a failure, but it is what it is. Just hope for the best. On to the rucks, and at the top of the list this week, we have a rule breaker in Lockie McAndrew. Only played the one game, but potentially something in this with my mortal enemy, the Peanut, getting a bit cracked up. But for me, it's such an easy wait and see, because if he keeps his spot this week, which I assume he will, then he'll have the bye, and then his bubble game will be in round 13. So, as I said, makes a lot of sense just to wait and see. I'm not sure how far away Hickey is, so that's another thing to consider. I think we just hold our horses for now. Asava, he's a very easy hold for me. Fantastic swing, coverage for the buys, consistently delivers acceptable scores at F6, and has a few games at the Cattery in the second half of the year. Yeah, as I said, very easy hold, especially for the buys. Samson got very lucky with his score. Half of it came from a contested mark that clearly hit the ground. Then he kicked truly to hit the scoreboard. So without that, this wouldn't have been very good. With Nank back, his ceiling decreases. So I think he's right for the chopping, but you could hold for now. He's got the last buy. Rowan, easy hold, continues to kill me as a non-owner. Very bad anti-pod to have. Shrek had a low score this week. Comes up against the Gorn Grundy combo, but I reckon that Luke Jackson, he'll be up for the fight against his old mob, and the Freo pairing could give them a bit of a run for their money, but a little bit up and down in the last three. Hopefully he can deliver another big one this week. Went 155 a couple of weeks ago. Big Maxi, excuse me, again, really disappointing. In what I thought would be a pretty easy night for him, it actually turned into a terrible night. They were putting a lot of pressure on him. Definitely very wary of where he was, what he was doing at all times. Teakle went out. Lysette actually came in, played a half-decent game. And he's borderline DPP. He needs to play exactly 35% or more forward time this week, or else he'll remain purely a ruck. Not a good outcome for owners such as myself. Darcy Cameron, again, another wait and see. Late in last week, did a few nice things, but didn't set the world on fire. I'd wait and see on some potential DPP movement before committing to him. See how he goes this week. He is Collingwood's number one ruck, though. And Tim English, well, as we mentioned, has wits for company this week, been up and down on his early season form, but still the number one ruck in Supercoach land, and one that you want to own. Now probably isn't the right time to invest, though. Onto the forwards, 500k plus, and I've got 5 names on the list here. I haven't included Josh Dunkley, Timmy Taranto, mainly because we all own them. They're just such highly owned players, so not much discussion needed there. They've been playing really great football, not trading them out, absolute locks. So the man we do have at the top of the list this week is Mr. Zach Butters. Didn't he just play the game of his life last week against the D's? Played like a man possessed, literally did everything apart from get a hit out to advantage. In the wet, his ball skills are impeccable. Seemed like he was involved in almost every one of the scoring chains. His footwork, balance, speed, just to die for. Execution by foot in those conditions was unreal. Hit the scoreboard multiple times. As I said, just the complete game. A lock for 3 votes on Brownlow night. Now, at this price, it's a hell of a lot to pay, but his next 2 matchups in particular are pretty tantalising. He plays the Tigers, who just leaked a 160 plus to Zeret. Then he faces the Hawks at Adelaide Oval. I reckon he gets close, if not past, the 700k mark with those matchups. We do need to remember that he'll then face a very high break even, as his monster from last week will roll out. But if you can replace that monster with another monster, say against the Hawks, then he's got the potential to keep his price. He's got the last buy, which is a bit of a bugger, but not necessarily depending on your situation. There could be a sneaky move to make with Butters. Make that what you will. Rosie played a ripping game on the weekend, but his performance was certainly outshadowed by Butters. He had a massive impact on the game though as well. Was rewarded with his highest score of the year with a 140. He's that consistent 95 to 105 type player most weeks, with the opportunity to go a lot bigger on some occasions, yet he won't go much smaller than that. So that's why I've got the safest houses symbol on him. Baz, with Treloar out, with McRae being banished to the forward line, Baz looks to be cashing in. He's had 87% CBAs and 75% CBA last week. He's had leather poisoning, picking up 37 touches, receiving 121 points for his efforts. Some may be waiting to pounce on a McRae when he gets forward status, but if you're looking for a dog forward with DPP, then this man could be an answer over McRae. It'll depend on what happens when Treloar comes back. And look, he's crazy, crazy Bevo. That's the issue, isn't it? He's coached by crazy Bevo, so always a risk selecting one of these dogs. But if he keeps his current role, I think he should reward you well. Errol, he copped the Scott tags I mentioned before, fought his way through it pretty well, but killed our vice-captain, or in my instance, captain's score, couldn't back up his 150s, which was a little bit of a shame against North, but can't really complain. 24 touches and a goal. It was looking like a really low score at quarter time. I think he was on under 10 points, might have been 9 points, but managed to pick things up when the tag were loosened up, which was nice for owners. Clearly has a best buy out of this group. And Cogs played a decent game of the weekend, 26 touches, kicked a goal. He's the cheapest, but probably the least sexy pick, I'd say, out of this bunch. And another with the red buy. I've got the question mark on whether or not he produces a top 6 average from here, but I think he should be pretty close to the mark. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k, and at the top of the list, we have Mr. Humphrey B. Bear. Come on down, son, take a bow. Oh man, this was such an entertaining watch. He was playing Alliance while watching him really, really closely. This bloke is going to be an absolute star. Tough, athletic, well-balanced, high footy IQ, got a mad haircut, bit of swagger, really, really fun to own him. He attended some CBAs, did some damage up forward, marked well overhead, had no trouble finding the ball, particularly in the first quarter. He picked up 9 touches, had 26 in total for the game. Interestingly, there may be some meat on the bone, as he didn't lay a single tackle. In rounds 8, 9, he laid 5 in each one of those games, featuring the coaches' votes and the votes for the Marcus Ashcroft medal. The big question is, can you bring him in this week? Is it still viable? Well, it could be yes or it could be no. It depends on your current team situation and setup, as well as your future projections for the Bear. To put it really simply, if you think he can average 85, then it's all good to jump on. He'll provide enough cash gen and on-field points to make it worth your while. But if you think he averages, say, 60s for the next month, then I don't see the value in it. So it depends on your projections. I obviously jumped on last week, so I don't have to make this tough decision. Whatever you do, all the best of luck. Certainly see merit either way. Seamus, he was fantastic on the weekend. He's delivered some really consistent scores since his debut. 67, 79, a sub-affected 41 where he was super unlucky. Then 54, 74, and a career high 82 last week. Only 17 touches, which was down on last week, but had 3 more tackles and used it much better. Very easy hold, but don't purchase. Think the ship has sailed here. JVR, break even at 24 means he's a pretty easy hold. Doesn't need much discussion. Benny Hobbs, he's had, a decent couple of weeks. I think he's been the beneficiary of Essendon's midfield injury list, an 83 against the Lions, followed that up with a 90 against the Tigers last week. 23 touches, 6 tackles, that's fine. Interestingly, didn't have a single CBA in round 9, but he did have the 38% last week, which was a season high. I think when Shield comes back, that should drop again, making him a pass in my opinion. Simpson, he was subbed out of the game, only delivering a low 20 score this week. You've got a couple of options as an owner. One, hope that injuries keep him in the side. He can provide some nice coverage during the buys. Or else 2, you can just get out now. And look, if he starts the sub or is subbed out during the game again, he'll most likely lose coin. There may be a chance he loses his spot altogether. But yeah, I'm about 50-50 on whether or not he holds or not. Chandler is a chop or a hold, up to you. His break-even's in the red, but he is playing at the MCG, averages well there. He scored a 93, 90, 85, 104, a low score of 42 though against the Hawks, but in 80% of those matches played at the G, he's scored at least 13 points more than that current break-even. So completely up to you again, arguments to trade or hold either way. The Shees, yeah, had a bit of a role change, didn't he, on the weekend? Spent more time up forward as well as in the midfield. I actually thought that he looked really good. Posted a decent score as well, but, oh, look, the change in role, it does have me slightly concerned. I'd just love to see him seagulling off half-back. So, personally, I think we hold at least up until his bye, reassess that role and scoring potential, and then make a decision then if we've got luxury to do so. Allen, he's been one of the shining lights for the Eagles this year, but his break-even is 107. Not looking likely that the West Coast forward will be scoring well this week or any week into the future. You can hold if you want. He's scored some 90s before, but he'll most likely start to leak cash. And Jezza Cameron is an interesting one. We've seen him at the top of the 500k plus forward list earlier this year, but without a decent Geelong midfield, his scores have dried up. In round 2, we saw a 149, kicked 6 goals, 156. 2 rounds later, with 7 against the Hawks. Then he beat up a bit on West Coast. But in the last 4 weeks, his scores have nosedived, and this is exactly why I preach my dislike for selecting key forwards, particularly at a premium price. They're roller coasters, and Jez's roller coaster is still on the downwards rail. 88, 87, 66, and 62 in the last month, and only 7 goals during that time. So he kicked as many goals in one game against Hawthorn as he has for the last 4 games. Pretty hard to believe, but does have a nice buy, and one of the best players in the comp. Maybe one to watch for now, and then just track his price. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. Thanks for sticking with me as always. And at the top, we have Eddie Ford. Only played the 1 game this year, and a very, very solid game at that, punching out a 102. But keep in mind, we do have the rule breaker here. Only played the 1 game. He could turn around and punch out a 40 this week, and then find himself back in the Rezzies the week after. I would hesitate to go early, but one to watch closely this week and then reassess the next week. Baldwin is the only man on the bubble here, but doesn't really interest me at the price. I reckon his JS is sketchy. I think Janice said he doesn't mind him as an option, so possibly one to consider. But for me, at the price, I don't really like it. Laverde should be back soon, and when that occurs, I think he loses his spot, but I don't have the best read on him. You may be more confident on him than I am. Francis played a bit of a stinker this week, only scoring the 54. Still has a low break even, so easy hold for now. Ollie Lord, he's a hold if you own, but not a trade-in option. Tommy Berry started as a sub last week. May give you 20 points around the buys, but can't see him doing much else. Never a player that I recommended trading in. Love him though, one of my ex-Lions boys and a great character. Philippou, as you can see with the symbol there, been a bit of a slow burn. Drury, been a bit of a disaster trade-in for those that went there, so lucky I went with Humphrey because I think he may be in doubt for this week, either through injury or even omission. And Nat Fyfe, this one interests me. I think he should play a full game after his bye. It's been mooted he'll be not purely playing as a forward, but also as a midfielder. They want him in there around the CBAs. Good signs. And I reckon he could be the perfect F7 M9 swing for the rest of the year. Obviously, durability is shocking, but see how he goes this week. Allow him to have a little rest over the bye, then come out and go bang in round 13. I think one to monitor very closely. So that's it for now, guys. All the best of luck with your trade-ins and your trade-outs for this week, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, bye.